Mi basarai exa Eloka. Eov tells us that from my own flesh I see God. How is it possible to see God from your own flesh? Rav Shach, when he was 100 years old, he would look at his hands and say, I see God in my fingers. I see Hashem Yisbarach in my fingers. And in fact, Rav Chatzkel Levenstein used to say that Yedei Moshe Emunim Heim. They're Emunah because from your fingers a person can gain Emunah because you see a Kadosh Baruch Hu in your life and you see how he acts, and that brings you to a greater level of Emunah. And this is what Eov is telling us. Mi basarai echselokah. From everything I go through my life, from my experiences, from my rises and from my falls, I see the Borei Olam. About 12 years ago, I was at the wedding of my daughter, and in the row of passion, I was so excited that my daughter was getting married to such a wonderful chassan. I was dancing, and I ripped my meniscus. It was very painful. I was on the floor for a little while, and I couldn't really walk around. Baruch Hashem, I had a good physiotherapist. He helped me get better. And he told me, don't forget to exercise, because if you don't exercise, it will come back, right? You strengthen the muscles around your leg. That holds it in place. And if you don't, then it will come back. So for the past year and a half, Baruch Hashem, I've been davening at the Kosel, and that has not left me sufficient time to use the exercise bicycle. So last night, I was at the chasna of my close Talmud, Elimelech Bloch, and I was dancing as if it was my son getting married with great passion. And lo and behold, suddenly I hear, which was my knee. And once again, I ripped my meniscus. And I was thinking about this. I was trying to do a cheshbon nefesh. The Gemara in Brachos Daf Hey Amud Aleph tells us, Im yisurim bo liyotra tifashpesh v'maisav. You should feel your actions and see if there's something wrong. And I thought about what I was doing, and I came up with about 275 things I need to fix, so that I'll have to get to work on that. But there was one thing I was noted, which was very, very exceptional, right? Which was that at the time of my daughter's wedding, I happened to be learning a certain part of the Kisvei Arizal called Sheviras HaKelim. Sheviras HaKelim is as follows. I can't go too deep into it, but I'll tell you the basic breakdown, no pun intended, right? When Hashem created the world, Hashem is perfect. How can an perfect being create a world which is imperfect? Okay, that's a big philosophical question. How can Hashem give place for a man's job in this world? So what Hashem did was he created the world and he had it be created in a way that it afterwards collapsed, and our job is to put it back together. Hashem created the HaKelim, as they were, the vessels to hold his light with not enough strength to maintain the light that was in it. The light came in, the HaKelim exploded, and it's our job to pick up the pieces, as it were, and to fix the HaKelim. When we finish doing that job, Mashiach will come. This is our job in the world. The Mekubalim say that whoever learns this part of the Kisvei Arizal has to be very, very careful, because it's the segula for having difficulties. And lo and behold, last night at the wedding, I happened to be learning this parsha of Sheviras HaKelim as I was 12 years ago, and I had Sheviras HaKelim. I felt so much passion and simcha and joy for this chassan, like my very own son. He's been my Talmud for about 10 years. The first time I met Eli Melech, he brought the following shaila to me. He had 20 flags sewn together. He wanted to know if it was a Purim costume, if it's chayiv and tzitzis. Anyway, I love the shaila. In any event, I had so much passion for this that the ore was too great. It couldn't stay in the kli, which was my body, and therefore I just collapsed on the floor and hurt my knee. B'ezrat Hashem, I will get better. And anyone who's listening to this shir would like to daven for you for the next month, Daniel Yaakov ben Pesach, or Daniel Yaakov ben Nancy. My mother doesn't have a Hebrew name, Daniel Yaakov ben Nancy or Daniel Yaakov ben Pesach. I would be greatly appreciative. I want to finish off with one more very, very important point. It's a Gemara in Nida, Daf Lamed Aleph, Amud Aleph. The Gemara says like this. The Gemara says there were two people going to catch a boat, right? And the boat, it was in the harbor, they'd leave. And one person, as he was traveling to get the boat, he hurt his leg. Maybe he tore his meniscus like me. In any way, he was cursing the Borei Olam, Rachmana litzlan, B'charv Magadif, right? And what happens? His friend got the boat. 3 days later, he heard the boat sank, right? And he was praising God. Baruch Hashem, I missed the boat. Hallelujah. Yeah. And on this The Gemara brings a pasuk from Tilim, Ayin Beis, Yud Ches. It says, Oisin iflois levade. Hashem does miracles by himself. When bad things are happening to us, especially hurting your leg, it's Hashem is saving you from other things, whatever it might be, like boats that are going to sink, etc. Now, I just happened yesterday to be writing up a certain shir about when I was 17, I was training for the Olympics. I wanted to be Olympic hurdler, 400 meters. I was very, very fast. I was number 3 in New York City. And I had very great ambitions to train for the Olympics. One day when I was training, my leg clipped like this, a hurdle, and I smashed onto the ground. I broke my ankle. And that got me thinking. I had 2 months where I couldn't train. It got me thinking, I'm running 100 miles a week, but I'm not getting anywhere. At the end of the week, I'm in the same place. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Just then, Rav Meir Kahana, Hashem Yikov Damav, he happened to chance upon our school, the Bronx High School of Science. He came in to give a class, and he said, young men and women, you're all in the wrong school. Get out of here and go to Israel immediately and go to yeshiva. He said, and when you come to yeshiva, come to me for Shabbos. Anyway, I was 17 and young and impressionable. I wasn't 17 actually, I was 16, I believe. And it was the first time in my life I ever heard words of truth before. I never heard somebody speaking truth on that level. And I said, I'm going. I'm getting up and going. It took me 2 years. I had to make a couple of changes in my life until I got there. It took me 2 years. And eventually, Baruch Hashem, this is already close to 40 years I'm in Eretz Yisrael. And it all started with the broken ankle. It all started with the broken ankle. And I understood now, in retrospect, that Gemara Nida, Lamed Aleph, Amud Aleph, where it talks about the person breaking his leg, hurting his leg, and being saved. The legs represent your travels through life. Sometimes in our travels in life, Hashem says, you're not going in the right direction. I don't want you to get an Olympic medal. I want you to become a Talmid Chacham, or at least try to become one. And so what does Hashem do? Hashem hurts our legs. And that helps us to regain the right position, the way we're supposed to be going to. So Hashem Yisbarach should help me to find the way that I'm supposed to be going and help all those who need redirecting in life, like they say with the GPS, to recalibrate. And if you happen to be learning the Parsha of Sheviras, HaKelim, be very careful. It's a segula for hurting your legs. And we should all get Hashem's musar, but in a gentle way. I'll just finish off with a very interesting story. The mashgiach in Mir Brackfeld, his name is Rabbi Hexter. His sister is married to my first cousin. And one time I was at a Purim Suda, and Rabbi Hexter was there also. He said, Rabbi Travis, I want to tell you, I mention you in my tefillahs every single day. I said, really? What do you say? I say, Hashem, if you want me to do something, let it be more gentle. Because one of my other escapades was when I was run over by a car and pronounced dead. That was on Chai Sivan about 31 years ago. In any event, Baruch Hashem has given me a lot of musar, and I hope I'm getting to the point where I can have self-generated musar. I won't need these injuries anymore. But until then, we have to thank Hashem. Oisin iflois levado. When something happens like a leg injury or any type of injury, don't panic. Don't get upset. Right? The first thing you should do is say, Kol ma da'avid Rahman l'tov avid. Everything the merciful one does, he does for good. And we say Rahmana because Hashem is infinitely merciful. Hashem is infinitely merciful and infinitely good to us. And I'll just finish off with one more story. You might think after hearing this shir, like how many times did Rabbi Travis hurt his leg? It was quite a few. I was in Manhattan. It was about 10 years ago. It was snowing. Us Israelis are not used to snow. I was walking out of Shul on 92nd Street on the west side, West End Avenue, Rabbi Forehand, and I slipped on the ice. I looked at my ankle. It was about this big, and I'm not exaggerating. Anyway, they took me to the hospital on 113th Street in Harlem in New York, and as they wheeled me in, I was smiling and in excruciating pain. They said, "Sir, why are you smiling?" I said, "Because I know this is for the best." They said, "Take this guy to the mental asylum. Take him to Bellevue. This is the wrong hospital." Anyway, but Baruch Hashem, that trip was one of my most productive trips. I was going around on crutches. Everyone gave me 3 times the amount because they said, He's on crutches, must be really important. Finally, the last day of the trip, a lawyer came up to me and said, Rabbi Travis, did you slip on the ice, on the snow? I said, yes. Was it in front of a place where they didn't shovel their snow? I said, yes. You know that this is a reason that you have to sue. I said, look, I don't want to get involved with lawsuits. He said, Rabbi Travis, the minhag in America is to sue. If you don't sue, then you're breaking the minhag. It's a very serious transgression. Anyway, so I asked the Shaila. They said I could sue. I sued. We got a settlement of $50,000, which was 3 times more than they thought. They told me, actually, one of the people involved with the case said, I have to lie. If I tell them that it wasn't snowing, if I tell them it was snowing at the time, then you won't get a cent. I said, I called up Rav Moshe Meisman, who's one of the most honest people I know in the world, and I said, am I allowed to say that it was not snowing? Definitely not, he said. I said, but they're telling me that such a light snow is not legally considered to be snowing. And this, can I say that I don't know if it was snowing? Say, okay, Eini Odea. The Gemara says a person should accustom himself to say Eini Odea. If you don't really know, then you can say Eini Odea. Anyway, that's what I did. In any event, when I got to the meeting with this woman who was interrogating me, right? She had a big ring in her nose, like about the size of a basketball. Yeah, right. I put down my book, Priceless Integrity, on the table. I said, ma'am, as Jews we're forbidden to lie. I want to say as close to possible. I want to say the exact truth in every question you ask me. She was like shocked, right? She asked me, young man, I was a little younger at the time, were you taking any illegal substances that day? I said, ma'am, I thought they were illegal. No, I just wanted to check, did you drink any alcoholic beverages? I said, well, the night before I was at a wedding and I had some alcohol. How much did you have? I said, 1 cup of wine. She said, no, that's all right. Anyway, she kept interrogating me, and Baruch Hashem, I was truthful in every single thing. And instead of getting $17,000, which they predicted, I got $50,000, Baruch Hashem. Now, I wouldn't want to go through it again. And after that, I made many changes in my life, as I did every time I had a leg injury. But the point is, Mibasare exo Elokoh. From our flesh we see God. When we have injuries, don't get upset, don't panic. Say, Kol Mad Avid Rachman L'Tov. Because I'm standing here with one of the finest people that I know, right, in Yerushalayim, Mr. Shmuel Yellen, who was one of the founders of the Torah community in Melbourne, Australia, and many other accomplishments. He has sons who are tzaddikim. And whenever I see him, he always talks about the Bari Olam. He always talks about how thankful we have to be no matter what happens. Right? He just happened to walk in here as I'm giving this year. So it's a great honor for me to be in his presence. And we should all learn from Rabbi Yellen. Whenever anything happens, thank the Bari Olam. Don't get angry. Don't get upset. If somebody does something to you, don't be mad at him. As long as we're talking about ankle injuries, and this shir is already so long, I'll tell you one more story. You're probably saying, Rabbi Travis, how many stories do you have about your leg? Well, I was on a bus, right? And I told you I was very fast, but this time I was not fast enough. As I got on the bus, he closed the door on my ankle, and it happened to be the same ankle that I broke in America. I was in quite a lot of pain, and I was thinking to myself, if I say to this driver that I'm in excruciating pain, please open the door, he might get offended that I'm criticizing him. So while I was thinking about to do, he happened to open the door, thanked the Bari Olam, and he screamed at me, you almost broke the door of my bus! You know how much this would cost me? So what did I do? I said, I'm so sorry. I apologize. It wasn't on purpose. Now, the truth is that it took me 1.5 seconds to lift my leg, and he only gave me 1.3 seconds. I think that was a little bit fast. I think he could slow down a little bit how fast he closes the door. But the point is, don't get upset with these people. Maybe he has a difficult life. You have to understand what he's going through. And it's all for the best. Because how many times I told this story already? It was great material for classes. And many, many other things that come out. I learned patience. I learned understanding. I learned how to love every single Jew, right? Assuming that he wasn't one of our Arab cousins. In any event, the moral of this is that Rabbi Travis has a lot of leg injuries. But Baruch Hashem, for every single injury that I've had, I've tried to change my life in some way, become a better person, recognize Hashem more. And many of them happened when I was learning the Arizal about Sheviras, HaKelim. I have to be more careful next time. Maybe next time I'm just going to skip it. In any event, thank you. If you made it to this point in the shir, then you have a lot of patience or you like good stories. And you should all have bracha and tzlacha. Don't forget, anything that happens to you which is not in your liking, say, call ma'ad avid rachman l'tov avid. It's halacha in Shulchan Aruch. Siman Reish Lamed Siv Hey. And it says, L'olam yeh rogel. Rogel means 100 times a day. Things go wrong, say, Kol ma'ad avid rachman l'tov avid. There's a big chiddush from Rav Shlomo Kluger. He says, even when things go right, you should say it. Right? Because it says, La'olam yeh rogel. He says, when things go right. You think when things go right, it's also not because of Hashem? Yeah? Think only when things go wrong, it's Hashem. Things go right. You have to be careful when things go right that it's not going to go wrong, right? As the Gemara says, you could find a lot of money and, think you're rich and then get arrested for it, right? Or your field could get flooded and eventually it'll be good for the crops. So you never know. Reb Revda, whose yard site was yesterday, always used to say, right? From the Rambam says, a person should always say, Yehi Ratzon Shezetye Hatzlocha Amitis. This should bring me true success. This is the way a Jew is supposed to live his life. This is called Amunah, seeing the Bori Olam at all times. The Vilna Gaon writes, Shechina means Akaras Hashem. Recognize Hashem in your life. The more you see Hashem, the more Hashem sees you, the more he interacts with you. And, okay, it might mean, if you're Rabbi Travis, you might get some difficult nisyonos, right? But you have to always be happy. Hashem's given us health, children, parnasa, everything. Who made it? Hashem is so kind to us, and He should continue being kind to every single Jew. He should bring peace to Eretz Yisrael. He should bring the Gula very, very quickly. Amen. Kain Tiei Ratzon.